Hi, and welcome to Leading Dragons. And today we have a very special guest, Mike Padurano. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how are you?
I'm
How are
good.
you doing?
Thank you for coming on my show.
You are very welcome. I got all dressed up for the occasion.
I know, seriously, I'm really honoured. So Mike, you're in the States. Whereabouts are you in the States?
I am still in Arkansas, the middle of nowhere.
Okay. And it's very cold.
Right now, yeah, for some strange reason, yes, it got really cold. It was negative 16 degrees Fahrenheit the other day with wind chill.
Yeah, that's a bit
Yeah.
painful, isn't it? Right. So
Uh,
I'm particularly honoured because we met not so long ago through Humans First.
mhm.
You are known, and we speak of you as the king of podcasts. So I have to say that I am particularly honoured to have you on the other side of the mic, or the other side of the screen, or whichever way you want to say it. So, Mike, let's just go straight in. Your core purpose, and I'm just going to read it out because I pulled it out, is to elevate humanity through knowledge and understanding. We've spoken a few times. There are two words that come to my mind how you describe what it is that you do and what it is that you offer, which is vulnerability and connectivity. And I can truly say that you do stand by those two values. So, do you want to tell us a little more about why you're here, what your quest is, and we can say hello to Sid.
we could, but she just did a cameo on the side, so you never know, right? Like she shows up all the time. So
That's cool.
single father,
She can come on
but
my podcast too. I'm sure she's got a few things to say.
I'm sure she does, and I can only imagine what would come out of her mouth. So
So yeah, so Mike, tell us some more. You call yourself the connected consultant. What is why the connected consultant, and what is your quest?
I spend a lot of my time connecting people, right? And I do it differently than most. Um, I am a person that lives in my spirituality, connectedness, and it's kind of a play on word about connected consultant because it's spiritual and it's also what I do for people. So I follow my intuition through and through. So when I'm connecting people, there's an intuitive reason for doing it. I don't question it anymore. I don't always see why, but I just follow it. Like the names just come to my mind of who to connect to too. And I don't even do, as you've seen, I don't do formal introductions. It's always you guys need to talk. Because sometimes I don't know, and other times it's because I want your guys' intuition to play a role in it, and I want you guys to figure out why you're on the phone with each other, right? And I've done that for you many times. And sometimes people say it's awkward. Sometimes people say it's fun.
Mhm.
Sometimes people tell me they hate it, and I say that's how I am, and I can introduce you to people or not. So take it or leave it. Like it's just who I am.
So, Mike, have you saying, yeah, I just trust my intuition, and you kind of just thrown it in there, but that's a massive statement, at least from where I'm coming from. And honestly, if you look around, I mean, if you were to ask me how many people do I know who actually truly, follow their intuition day in, day out, I don't know if I could count five people on one hand. So were you always like that? And how did that come about?
Not even close. Um, I ran for my intuition for the first 41 years of my life. I hid behind every avoidance tactic, every escapism I could, whether it was drugs and alcohol, whether it was porn, whether it was sex, whether it was sports, whether it was being a fan to sports, whether it was um, workaholic, right? Whether it was just busyism and staying busy at all times. Even my kids at times I used to escape from leaning into my intuition, right? And I think anytime that you're avoiding something, you're escaping from what you know is the right thing to do, right? And following your gut, people will say. Um,
Mm.
you know, for me, it's all about just leaning into myself and stepping into my core values, which I've recently started doing towards the end of last year when I finally understood what core values were. I never understood why I wasn't aligned as a person. I never understood why I didn't feel like I was aligned, but it was also partially because I didn't even know what core values were, right? I had no idea what they were. I had no idea what my true self wanted. I had no idea what I was meant to be or what I was meant to do. I had ideas, I had concepts, but living in your truth and living in transparent honesty and clear communication is very difficult. There's a lot of people that can't handle it. I mean, I've gotten hung up on, I've gotten people throw me out of their lives, and I'm willing to risk that, right?
Mhm.
To live to my truth. When you live into your truth, it's not that I'm going out to hurt people by telling them things that are going to hurt them, but it's if something's making me feel icky or making me not feel right, or I'm hiding something that seems like a minor thing, I will go and confront that and bring it forward.
Still outside, but it's freaking cold outside, and then this day outside is not me.
So it's really cold out.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good time to go outside. Where's your iPad?
Sophie,
Go look for it.
I'm charging.
It's full, I promise. I charged it earlier. This is single father of three life, right? So
Yeah.
no matter what we do in life.
And Mike, I'm just admiring your collect, you're just anchored there. You're just like taking it as it comes. And that's a really beautiful illustration of accepting, isn't it? It's just accepting it is what it is. I mean, everyone's saying that. Everyone's going, it is what it is. It's like, really? Is it really what it is? And do you really accept that?
It's a combination of allowing and accepting, right? One is she's a 3-year-old that didn't sleep enough. So you
Yeah.
have to allow for that. Accepting is allowing myself to just be okay with whatever's going on around me. Like I can't change my circumstance. I can't change that we're technically snowed in. I can't change that we're, trapped in an Airbnb for the last 11 months. But what I can change is how I react to it and how I handle it and how I put forward with it. And that's what I can change.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm living in today.
Yeah. So, Mike, we're talking. We're going straight into this, and there are a lot of subjects about that. And I want to go back to your quest. And you mentioned core values. Would you like to share with us, with our dear listeners, how did you come about actually integrating, first identifying what your core values were and integrating those?
Identifying what my core values were, in a lot of cases, it was things that I didn't never stood into. In a lot of cases, it's what I perceived myself to be living as, but never truly did.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of self-awareness is where I was failing in my mission and purpose in life. And honestly accepting that and moving forward into it. I'm a little bit of an overthinker. So I broke my core values down into 4 sections, which is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then what I'm looking for as a partner or a friend or anybody else in my life. And it doesn't mean one person has to fill all those things that I have listed. It just means that those are the qualities that I look for somebody that's close to me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's transparency, honesty, clear communication, um, integrity, uh, perpetual growth is a huge one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Always evolving on all levels. That's one actually that hit every level. Inspiring me to be self-inspired, or me inspiring others to be self-inspired, right? Because the only thing more powerful than inspiring someone is teaching them how to inspire themselves, right? Because then it becomes infectious, then it becomes a ripple effect, then it becomes something tangible that they can give to others without even trying.
So can
Just
we
by
just like pause on that self-inspiration, because that's um, the way that I recognize it is it's fuel, right? That's what fuels your quest, yeah. So so where does that fuel come from?
I mean, there's many answers to that question, right? You could say God, you could say source, you could say universe, you could say whatever you believe in. My purpose has to do with my soul's purpose. My soul's purpose is what I know it to be, and that's to elevate humanity through knowledge and understanding. So what I've done is I've made that my outspoken legacy goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't hide, that's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that I do has to fit within my core values and what my legacy goal is.
Mhm.
I don't believe in goals. I don't believe in setting a 30-day goal, a 90-day goal, a 5-year goal. Because you know what? Life happens. Anybody who had a 5-year goal going into 2020 would have blown it out of the water, I promise you.
Mhm.
But because I have a legacy goal, I was able to adapt and change and grow and evolve through 2020 and made it my best year ever. Because I didn't have that pressure of reaching this tangible end result, because the only tangible end result is that I'm going to die at some. And when that happens, then my goal will be done, because I'm not going to.
I remember somebody, a Qigong teacher, tell me last year, Deborah, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And that's the expression that comes to me as I listen to you. And, it's about focusing on how to be rather than doing. And you and I have a number of stories where we've learnt from that, from being human doings. Being
Yes.
human doings, does that work? Anyway. But that takes a jolt, and oftentimes, or typically, to really integrate that understanding of, okay, so these really are my values, because so oftentimes, we're brilliant at identifying them and putting them in the right order, whatever, but actually standing in them, like properly, day in, day out, 24/7, no matter where you are, who you're with, whatever you're doing. I mean, that takes oftentimes a jolt, like a shock. For me, it was my burnout, and I realized that I didn't have much of a self relationship. That was a bit of a, like I say, yeah, like an electric shock. What was it for you?
All right, so I'm going to take this a step back real quick, and I'm going to explain everybody 2020 and what it did for me. The February 18th of 2020, I got evidence that my children were being abused by their mother, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and her boyfriend. By February 25th, I was in Arkansas. I drove from South Florida about 1,200 miles and made a couple stops in the way. Had to meet with the FBI in a different state, all sorts of fun crap, and filed paperwork to get emergency custody of my kids. March 6th of last year, I got emergency custody of my kids, which in the paperwork stated I had to stay in the district. I couldn't leave the district until we went to court. Now, somewhere between March 6th and my first court date of March 31st, COVID happened, shut down the world. My court date got canceled because there was a tornado where my lawyer was it was just like this impossible series of events. I went into this enormous depression, probably the lowest moments of my life, the darkest moments. Somebody reached out to me out of the blue. When that person reached out to me out of the blue, it woke me up in a way. It sparked something that I've never felt before. And I've been spiritually awake off and on since I was 5 years old, 4 years old, somewhere in that range. Hid from it, back to it, hid from it, back to it, very spiritual, living in myself, being in myself. But this was different. This jolted me. At that point, I started living in gratitude. It was a slow transition, basically, from misery to starting to work out of it. She introduced me to Brene Brown. I listened to Daring Greatly, I think 11 times in 2 months, just nonstop on repeat. I started doing the blame, shame, and guilt work. I met Sherry Lewick, did trauma therapy, trigger therapy, started releasing all that crap I've been carrying my whole life. Keep in mind, at that point, I was sober 14 years and never did any emotional work at all. Just didn't do any emotional work. I just stayed sober. So I wasn't clean and free and clear. I didn't feel that personal freedom at all. I stayed sober. Now, it doesn't mean that my other vices and addictions didn't kick in, like workaholic, the porn that I said, the sex, any of those things, strip clubs, any type of anything to fill voids, right? Didn't matter what it was. I always found a way to fill my void. Even my kids at some point became filling my void because I was hiding from myself and saying that I stayed in a bad marriage to protect my children. Right. So I used that as an escape from walking into who I am and what I'm meant to be. And I used that as an excuse. And I said, oh, I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for them. Right. And it's easier to say I'm doing it for this reason than it is to say, shut up, buttercup, and just do the work. Right. nobody wants to do the work. The work sucks. And somewhere between starting this path last year And towards the end of last year, I think it was end of November, beginning of December, um, I went from book to book to book to book, went through, I mean, I've just started absorbing information left and right. Now, as I was doing this, I was becoming more spiritually awake. I was growing my circle. I have spiritual guides. I have physical guides that are in my spiritual world. I have all these people around me that started guiding me, and I started guiding them. I built this network out, and we all help each other. We're all there for each other. We're all here to bring humanity to a higher place,
Mm.
higher a higher vibration, because there's so much negativity and there's so much hate in this world. Um, and all we can do is play our role in that. So back to the original question, which is the core values. Somewhere along the way, through all these books and everything that I was doing, and then re-listening to books from 15 years ago when I was awake, and all these different things, something clicked one day about core values, and it was actually in Sherry Lewick's the group trigger therapy or trauma therapy, and she mentioned core values, and she handed me this list of like 100 things, and she said, "Well, what are your core values?" And I said, "What is a core value? Like, what is it?" Like, I didn't understand it. I didn't even know what that meant, right? Like, it made no sense to me. What do you mean? I live my life. I do the right thing. I'm this. I really see myself as this person. And she goes, "Really?" And I said, "Oh, I guess not. In some ways, right? Like, I still sometimes told white lies to protect people. I still would avoid having difficult conversations because I didn't want to hurt anybody. I would avoid difficult conversations because I didn't want to get hurt, right? I didn't want to accept things. I didn't want to allow things. And during this process, I identified my true core values and what matters most to me and what I'm looking for in life and to embody and to live in every day.
Mm.
Now, implementing them, that's a different story. Implementing them is not easy.
Mm.
It's a lot of self-awareness. It's a lot of, you know what, I've got to just do it,
It's
right? I've just
choices every day, isn't it? It's a choice every single time, isn't it?
so when I started this process, I wrote myself a love letter. Right now, keep in mind, 41 years old, I was emotionally numb, never said I loved myself ever, not even a single time in my life. So September of last year was the first time in my life I ever said absolutely love myself. So one of my mindset friend, he's a mindset coach, he's a friend, Matt Gagnon, he said, write yourself a love letter. Use the words that people describe you as and write yourself a love letter. So as far as the daily goes, every morning when I get up, I reread that love letter. Now, granted, my perspective of myself has changed drastically since I wrote it.
Mm.
But what's beautiful about it is it brings me back to where I was.
Yeah.
I don't know how low I was, but it also gives me an appreciation for how it started to change that mindset. And then I also read my core values. I read a few affirmations, and then I write all sorts of things. So I read some of those depending on the day and what my mood's at, also, and what I have for that day. So it is a daily practice. Everything's a daily practice.
Mm.
There's not a thing in our lives that's not a daily practice.
Yeah.
All we have is today. It's all we have.
And we have to remind ourselves to try and live more and more in the now, because we're either busy, remembering what happened yesterday, last week, last year with whoever in whatever situation, or worried about the future. And it's like, it seems so damn difficult to be more and more in the now when it's now that we're living and it's the signals that we have are now. And if we're not receptive to them, how can we grow? Mike, like leading dragons, which I just kicked off last September. I mean, September 2020. Wow, yeah, it was a big month, yeah, right. And it was about fear because as I started healing through my burnout, there was I realized the amount of fear. All this fear-based thinking, fear-based behavior, fear-based beliefs, fear-based reactions to things, and how this is so low vibrational energy. And so through that, I discovered that we can decide, and it goes back to daily choices in every moment. Do we want fear to define us, or do we choose to define our fear? So what comes first? What is it that we, and because we all have fear in us, in given, not constantly, but in a specific situation or something new happens or whatever it is. And I mean, we're not machines, we're human beings. So, we're not constantly vibrating at a certain level. I think we fluctuate. Yeah, that's what happens. It's, we're just living, evolving beings. So from there, I realized that as long as we stay stuck in that fear, we're staying in paralysis and we can't grow. And so that's why leading dragons is being able to stand in your power. And we can start learning to do that. And every day is a new day, and every day it's like finding your power, standing in your power, and working with the fear. What is your take on that? And what do you have a story that you would like to share with us around fear?
As far as fear goes, I spent my whole life in fear, right? I was scared of everything, terrified. Didn't matter what it was. Didn't always acknowledge that it was fear, right? I made lots of excuses. Didn't want to always say, I'm a man, right? I'm, supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to be that. Can't be gentle. Can't be vulnerable. Can't be sensitive, right? Like I'm a highly sensitive person, like extremely highly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And, growing up in the 80s, it was like 80s/90s, it was like you can't be sensitive, right? You just can't. And so I had these stigmas to break first within my own mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where the Brene Brown, the blame, shame, and guilt work really came in, played a big part. Vulnerability. I'm king of the oversharing because I don't care. Like I'm at a point now in my life where I will overshare to death, and if somebody can't handle it, that's on them, not me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with somebody walking. I don't care,
Mm-hmm.
but I know I'm going to share my message and my point no matter what.
It's so liberating, isn't it?
It is the most freeing experience in the world. It's personal freedom.
Yeah.
I have no fears. I have no skeletons. There's not a single thing in my life that anyone can hold over me because
Mm-hmm.
I say everything live. I mean, on my shows, on other people's shows, I don't hide it. I don't care. People don't want to talk about porn addiction. They don't want to talk about sex addiction. They don't want to talk about drugs, alcohol. They don't want to talk about the fact that I was suicidal, the fact that I had a death wish from the time I was 5 until 27. They don't want to talk about all the times I OD'd, the times that they're scared of that. Why? Why? This is a spiritual experience. I am a spiritual being living a human experience. Being human sucks. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But be magical at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it is magical when we allow it to be. As far as fear goes, it's a lower vibration. And what I'm learning to do is, because of all the work I've done, as soon as the fear pops up, I immediately start reframing. I immediately look to what the core fear is from my childhood. When did I first feel this fear? What was the first thing that triggered this same fear feeling that I can write back to and go and analyze what that circumstance was, how it started, how it happened,
Mm-hmm.
and because I refuse to live my life in fear. I just don't. There's just as good of a chance as a plane dropping on this Airbnb in the middle of nowhere as there is getting hit by a train. There is, car accidents are more liable than being on a plane. It's like not more liable, but more likely. Sorry. It's like this is the real world we live in. If you're scared of one thing, then you've got to be scared of everything. If you're not scared of one thing, then don't be scared of anything.
Mm.
Like, you can't let fear control you. You can't let lower vibrations control you. There are ways to take those lower vibrations and raise them, and raise yourself, and raise those around you, and lift others up. Inspire others to be their best selves by you being your best self.
Mm-hmm. And to join that to my quest, which is looking at the disease inside organizations, and it's not the need, it's the urgency to have to detox those cultures, and but for people to really step into action, not just sit and wait for the change to happen or wait for the people in power, because it ain't going to happen. And so I mean, it's easy, I don't actually really like that expression, it's easily said than done, because it's not, and it's actually not, it shouldn't be a choice anymore. And there's more and more normalization around burnout, around stress-related diseases. There's this kind of like normalization. All right, you're taking antidepressants. Which one? All right, you're seeing a
How
psychologist.
many?
Oh
How
yeah,
many?
yeah, exactly. You know, and it's like that's just not normal. I mean, you know, when I went to see my GP in November 2019, and he told me, do you know that 1 in 3 people in Switzerland are on antidepressants? And he kind of just like, yeah, would you like some? And I'm like, no. He's like, no, I can just sign you. I'll just sign, you know, give you a prescription. I'm like, no, it's okay, thanks. I'll just do a bit more yoga and a bit more this, bit more whatever, you know. And I just left there, and okay, obviously, like, you know, thinking, oh damn, now I'm going to be on sick leave. How's that going to work? Yeah, because I'm still so dedicated to the organization that I was working for. I say 1 in 3 people on antidepressants. That's just like not okay. But it is, and the doctors are just like writing it like it's candy, just handing it out. And I'm just thinking like, but you know, how much of these, how much is the responsibility of organizations? Because organizations typically, and I'm going to say organize, I hate to generalize, but in this way, this I have to. The employers go, oh, but we can't prove that it's associated to work. It's a person problem. It's not a company problem. And you're like, are you serious? Like, you know what about if we have a real conversation around that? Because those people, they spend 70% of their waking hours working in that company, in that organization. And so from there, how do you see, you know, you're talking about elevating people and lifting people, and with these models that are collapsing, and these leadership styles that are becoming obsolete, and this disease, and then that's happening, more and more people that are, you know, stress related conditions that they're developing, and particularly last year when, you know, there's remote working happening, micromanagement's gone through the roof. Oh yeah, you online, you're not online, it's 9 o'clock, it's 9:05, what were you doing the last 5 minutes? I'm exaggerating, or maybe not.
Maybe not.
No, but you know, it's sad truth, it is. How do you see the urgency and what needs to be done inside organizations?
So, my opinion is never going to be the popular one. My opinion is let them all collapse, let them all implode.
Mm-hmm.
It is a personal problem. It's not a work problem. And the reason I say that is because if each person changed their own self, then either they would leave the position because it wouldn't fit who they are anymore,
Yeah.
or enough people in an organization would change that the organization would naturally change, no matter what leadership wants.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things. There's a book called The Leader Without Titles, which is by Robin Sharma, and that is about anybody in an organization. No, it's too cold.
But I want to.
I know you want to. I'm sorry, but it's cold. Come here, give me a hug. Come here. I didn't mean to hit your.
Hug, huh?
You're tired. Come here.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, you're not gonna give me a hug. She's 3. She knows better than me. That book is a huge example, right? And
What's
then
the title of that book? Sorry.
The Leader Without Titles. The Leader Without a Title, I think. It's Robin Sharma. His books are amazing. I love his books. It's one of the first eye-opening books that I actually read in 2007,
Mm-hmm.
which led to me buying over 150 copies and giving them out to people, because that's how much of an impact that book had on me. It was called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It was an amazing, an easy book to read, amazing story, great fable, but the purpose and the intent that was built into it changed my whole perspective on everything. It didn't keep me from my bad marriage and marrying the wrong person and going through all that, but it changed my perspective so that when I was ready to listen to myself again, it was already there. She's just going to sit there and pout, apparently. So but like, if everybody found their best self, if everybody lived it to their core values, they wouldn't work for these companies anyway. They wouldn't want to be there. And when these companies start losing their employees and infrastructure, then they have to change.
Yeah.
So how do you force change? Easy. Walk away. Stop caring about that stuff. Because here's the reality. Money comes and goes, objects come and go, things come and go. You don't come and go. At the end of the day, you're stuck with yourself no matter what you're doing in your life. At the end of the day, if you're living your best life, the world around you comes together to provide for you. Because you're going to radiate that vibration. You're going to bring those things to you. Law of attraction, manifestation, whatever you want to call it. But when you're going and inspiring others to be self-inspired, you're lifting others up, everything naturally falls in place for you. But you've got to take that leap and get away from that fear of financial security. Get away from that. Because here's the reality. What do you think people in the early 90s were thinking in Russia before the economic collapse? And then they woke up and they went from perfectly fine financially to couldn't even find a loaf of bread. Like, I mean, who's to say what country that's going to happen to next? Countries are leveraging debt to beyond the extremes that have ever been seen before. I mean, what's going to happen? You know, the banks are going to keep writing checks. The banks are going to keep backing this. The central banks are going to keep getting behind it when they're private entities that aren't even affiliated with governments. At some point, the plug's going to be pulled on these things. And when that happens, we're going to only be left with ourselves, and we're not doing the work. And we go into that place, and we're not emotionally, mentally, and spiritually prepared for it. Because you're never going to be financially prepared for something like that, right? You're just never going to be. I know you want to go outside, but it's really cold. You don't want to go outside? Oh, it's not that cold? The foot of snow says different. The no sun says different. The icicles hanging from the roof says different, that it is cold outside. Can you go get Michelle for me, please? Right, but I'm going to force her to. So can you go get Michelle, please? I'm recording right now, so I can't go anywhere. If you go get Michelle, I will tell her. Ask her. Okay, then sit there and cry. You can only do so much.
Well, you can only, and you're doing a great job, Mike. So,
she'll get louder. He's just going to keep getting louder.
She doesn't agree. She doesn't agree.
And that's okay too. She doesn't have to.
Yeah, she doesn't have to. Exactly.
She's,
you know, when you say, well, then just walk away. You know, so how can we? What can we start doing? You know, we're in the vortex of society, right? Mass consumption, all the rest, mortgages, you know, and it's all that, and you know, walking away. You don't just like get up one morning, put your suit on, go into the, you know, badge yourself in, and go, see you guys, I'm out of here. Just thought I'd say goodbye and collect my stuff. Or you could. I mean, I'd love to find somebody who has done that. I actually don't know somebody. I mean, that could be my high five. You?
I have. Oh yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Tell us your story.
In 2006 and 7, when I first got sober, I was working at a company, and like always, I was excelling. I was accelerating. I was moving up in the ranks. They wanted to put me into management. And when I started doing management training and I started seeing behind how they were running their business, I couldn't live with myself anymore. I couldn't live with myself, right? I just couldn't.
Why?
Because it was ethically and morally wrong. They were setting people up for failure, and I couldn't do it. So one morning I walked in, I typed up my resignation, I put it on my screensaver, I texted my boss and said, go read my computer, and I walked out. But again, the next day I started a new company and I made, a year's salary in 3 months because I knew I could do it. And then my business partner was a drunk, so that blew that company up because he got into a fist fight with a client at a business meeting. But I mean, stuff happens, right? So what did I do? I sat down and I started creating another business because you know what? At the end of the day, when you're living your best life and you are living in your personal freedom, things attract themselves to you.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
it's
and
not
it's
always
moving also. I'm hearing you, you obviously you're coming from a place of abundance. And yet, since we're very little, it's, we're taught about scarcity. We are taught about individual performance. We're taught to compete one against the other. You got the goodies and the baddies, in all the films and in Hollywood and everywhere. And it's like, that's the thing. It's very counterintuitive to just walk out. It's counterintuitive to drastically change. And at the same time, we're arriving at a crux where when I actually, well, you know what? I mean, it's like me, I'm like, okay, so Debs, you're 45 now. What are you going to do? You're going to continue like complaining about what you've been complaining about the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Or are you actually fundamentally going to do something different? So, and that's how I started a new relationship with myself, or a relationship with myself.
right. Started 01, right? So so I look at this two ways. With whatever happens on the global economy, it's not going to be good in the next 5 to 10 years. So people are going to be left with two options. You either walk straight out the window and go face down into the ground, no matter what floor you're on, or you walk out the front door and you find your place in the world on your own, right? And you believe in yourself enough that you're willing to take that chance on yourself. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean it's all going to fall in place. I've been a millionaire on paper 3 times. I've been homeless 5 times. I don't care. It doesn't define who I am.
Yeah.
None of it does. I could wake up tomorrow with $500 million in my account. I don't care. I wake up with $1. I wake up with negative $500 million in my account tomorrow. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that's who I am. It doesn't define me in any way. I mean, who made this currency worth anything anyway? It's dead space.
And it's exactly that. Now, those leaders out there who are managing budgets and the bottom line, which is the what's the word, the raison d'être of a company. It's like, wow, maybe we need to redefine what a company is. Maybe the bottom line should not be that bottom line anymore. Maybe it should be the blood, the livelihood, the people in the company that make that company, because it isn't the bottom line. It's the people who make the company. It's not the profit. It's not the other way around. And shifting that over. And I think society, we do need organizations. We do need human organizations, because together we're much stronger. But we need to drastically shift the way that we're functioning, and the way, as long as you've got shareholders to answer to, who are just looking at the bottom line, how are we going to ever change anything?
A financial collapse where the money doesn't matter anymore because nobody has anything.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. That's part of it, right? Like, I mean, go back to the Great Depression in the U.S., it changed everything, right? Because the whole economy stunk. People didn't have money, they didn't have jobs.
Yeah.
She's stepping her game up during commercials on her iPad, so you can tell when it's a commercial or when the show's on, because it's a game. Oh, you still want to go outside? Can you hit Michelle for me, please? Right, but I told you, if you ask her to come out here and speak to me, I'll have her go outside with you. You just didn't listen to me last time. See, this time you're listening. It worked.
Yeah, listening is a skill in itself, How many 3-year-olds listen? Never mind 30-year-olds, never mind anybody, right?
I mean, how often do I? Like, I mean, I'm the guy who posts his resignation on the screensaver and just walks out, right? After getting a raise and getting 2 raises and 2 promotions in 6 months. Hi, can you please go back outside for a few minutes with her? Pause your iPad. I know you're watching the show. Oh, okay, then just a few more minutes. I know it's cold, but let her get cold.
We're gonna wrap up now, Mike. Okay, so we kind of covered. I mean, we need to do part 2, I reckon.
I will always do part 2, part 3, part 12, whatever you want to do. Yeah. At the end of the day, leading dragons, right? You don't want to live in fear. You want to live into your best self. The first thing you need to do is stop being scared of yourself.
Not being scared of yourself.
Yeah, because that's why you're scared of everything else. right? Because the way I look at this, and I wrote something about this, I don't know, a few months ago or something. Everything's a self job. If you feel like others are lying to you, or if you're lying to others, then you're lying to yourself also.
Yeah.
If you're judging others, then you're judging yourself. If you're setting expectations upon others, then you're setting expectations upon yourself. Because you can't do anything for anyone else that you're not doing for yourself. So the minute that you start forgiving yourself, the minute you start loving yourself, the minute you start releasing yourself from the crap that's been fed to you your whole life, is the minute that you can start doing that for others. I don't hide anything.
Mm.
It gives others the freedom to do the same.
We need to clone you, Mike. We need to have you a bit dotted
No,
around, you know?
no, no. I don't think the world could handle that. I don't. I mean, I got thrown out of 2 high schools. I mean, I never even graduated. I didn't go to college. You know, I mean, yeah, I was that we can go into many stories, but you
And
know, like,
and today you have a really inspirational and such an important, timely, and relevant quest about elevating self and elevating others. And thank you so much for coming today, Mike. It was a pleasure. I will definitely hand you another invite soon, so we can continue and perhaps deep dive into one of the many facets
yeah,
that we covered.
I'm I'm available whenever you want. I love it.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Bye bye.
All right.